Good afternoon, y'all. Sorry I can't be there to discuss legitimation and the symbolic universe in person. So, in this video, I will explain Berger and Luckman's concept of legitimation and the three components of the legitimation process: symbolic universes, conceptual machineries of universe maintenance, and social organization for universe maintenance. I begin with the concept of legitimation. Berger and Luckman define legitimation as a process that is best described as a second-order objectivation of meaning. Legitimation produces new meanings that serve to integrate the meanings already attached to disparate institutional processes. The authors go on to explain the function of legitimation is to make objectively available and subjectively plausible the first-order objectivations that have been institutionalized. In other words, participants in a society play roles and participate in the social construction of reality. This reality must be made meaningful and conceivable to all participants. Legitimation is the process that makes the social reality meaningful and conceivable to the members of a society. Legitimation becomes necessary when the objectivations of the institutional order are to be transmitted or passed on to a new generation. There are four levels of legitimation. The first is incipient legitimation. This level is pre-theoretical and is comprised of everyday knowledge. The second level is rudimentary, theoretical propositions. Proverbs and moral maxims are found at this level of legitimation. The third level is explicit theories. Explicit theories legitimate an institutional sector that is differentiated by other sectors according to its body of knowledge. Due to the complexity of the theories, they are transmitted by experts through formal initiation procedures. The fourth level, and the level that is the primary focus for this presentation, is the level of symbolic universes. Berger and Luckman define symbolic universes as bodies of theoretical tradition that integrate different provinces of meaning and encompass the institutional order in a symbolic totality. So, the symbolic universe is named as such because it encompasses all frames of reference and all human experience. According to Berger and Luckman, the symbolic universe is the highest level of legitimation or integration of meaning that materializes in everyday life. The lesser levels previously mentioned are perspectives on phenomena that are components of the symbolic universe. The symbolic universe is constructed through social objectivations. However, the capacity to which the symbolic universe transmits meaning surpasses the experience of everyday life. In other words, legitimation is now completely symbolic. The symbolic universe is gnomic or ordering in nature. The symbolic universe orders and legitimates everyday roles, priorities, and operating procedures by placing them in the context of the most general frame of reference. For example, if I were a landlord and my sister were living in my apartment and she was late on the rent, it may be viewed as a violation of family norms if I were to throw my sister out on the street. This would not be the case if the tenant were not my sister due to the gnomic priorities of the symbolic universe. The symbolic universe, moreover, makes it possible to order the phases of biography, or in other words, name the stages or what defines the stages of a person's life, e.g., infancy, adolescence, and adulthood. An example of biographical legitimation within a symbolic universe is the legitimation of death. The legitimation of death must enable an individual to continue living in a society after the death of a loved one or in the face of his or her own demise without becoming paralyzed by mitigating the fear or terror that may be associated with death. An individual's subjective identities, furthermore, are legitimized within the symbolic universe, from the most concrete, male, son, and father, to the more abstract, student, professor, or dean. The symbolic universe orders the history of a society. It establishes a collective memory of the past that is shared by all participants socialized within this society. It also establishes a frame of reference for projecting future plans or actions. In the case of a capitalist society, accepted future actions would be for an individual to enter a career in adulthood and contribute to the capitalist economy. Now that we have explored the symbolic universe, we turn to a discussion on the ways in which symbolic universes are sustained. Berger and Luckman label the legitimations addressing problems which arise within symbolic universes as machineries of universe maintenance. Since no perfectly harmonious society exists due to inevitable tensions of the processes of institutionalization, universe maintenance is necessary. There is an intrinsic problem in the transmission of one symbolic universe to the subsequent generation. That is, socialization is never completely successful. In other words, there is bound to be resistance of some form. This intrinsic problem becomes emphasized if deviant versions of the symbolic universe come to be shared by groups within the society. Berger and Luckman discuss two inherent problems to the transmission of the symbolic universe: heresy and confrontation of societies. Heresy is an intra-societal conflict. The problem of heresy occurs when, as previously mentioned, a deviant form of knowledge counter to the institutional version is shared by groups of inhabitants. This counter knowledge challenges the prescribed reality of the symbolic universe. Berger and Luckman assert the group that has objectivated this deviant reality becomes the carrier of an alternative definition of reality. Berger and Luckman provide the development of Christian theology, specifically the Trinity, as an example of heresy. The Trinity emerged as a machinery of universe maintenance as deviant groups challenged the traditional Christian theology. The concept of the Holy Trinity was legitimated as a result of the challenges to the traditional theology by groups who objectivated a deviant reality. Berger and Luckman state the symbolic universe is not only legitimated but also modified by the conceptual machineries constructed to ward off the challenge of heretical groups within a society. When there is a heretical challenge, conceptual machineries act to ward off and at times incorporate that deviant knowledge to modify the constructed reality of the symbolic universe. Of course, the amount of power a deviant group wields correlates with the likelihood of the deviant version of reality having an impact on the traditional reality of the symbolic universe. Now we turn to the second problem asserted by Berger and Luckman: confrontation of societies. The confrontation of societies occurs when one society is confronted by another with a drastically different history. Berger and Luckman argue this problem is sharper than intra-societal heresies because an alternative symbolic universe with an official tradition whose taken for granted objectivity is equal to one's own. In other words, both societies believe their reality and knowledge to be objective truth, which leads to conflict. A sophisticated conceptual machinery of universal maintenance is required to confront an alternative universe for two reasons. One, the alternative universe presented must be met with the evidence that one's own universe is superior, and two, the appearance of an alternative symbolic universe poses a threat because its very existence demonstrates that one's own universe is not an objective truth. The resulting legitimation of reality when societies confront each other depends on power. The society with the most power, often military or economic power, will come out on top in respect to which knowledge or truth is legitimated. Now we move on to the four types of conceptual machineries employed to maintain symbolic universes: mythology, theology, philosophy, and science. Berger and Luckman refer to mythology as the most naive level due to the specialist knowledge of mythology is not far removed from that of the layman's or layperson's knowledge. Theology is differentiated and more complex than mythology in that, according to Berger and Luckman, theology serves to mediate between the human world and the divine world. The divine and human are not directly linked. Science completely removes the sacred from everyday life. The lay participant does not know how her universe is maintained and relies on specialists for that knowledge, although the layperson does know who the specialists are. Berger and Luckman provide two versions of applied conceptual machinery in the maintenance of a universe: therapy and nihilation. Sorry, the slide should say nihilation, not nihilism. Therapy involves applying conceptual machinery to ensure deviants stay within the institutionalized definitions of reality. Therapy addresses individual cases of deviancy. Psychoanalysis and substance abuse rehabilitation are examples. The practice of gay conversion therapy, practiced by some Christian sects, is an example of attempting to cure what is viewed as a deviant sexual practice within the symbolic universe where heterosexuality is legitimated. Nihilation, conversely, is employed to destroy everything outside the symbolic universe. Nihilation may be seen as the opposite of legitimation, since nihilation denies the reality of whatever phenomena that do not fit into the universe. Nihilation will either attempt to neutralize deviant phenomena by labeling them as unimportant or inferior, or annihilation will account for deviant versions of reality with concepts native to the symbolic universe. Christian apologetics is an example of this. In a debate between a Christian apologist and atheist, for example, the apologist attempts to refute the atheist's argument using Christian theology. Finally, we turn to a brief overview of social organization for universe maintenance. As more complex forms of knowledge emerge and economic surplus is amassed, experts engage full-time to their subjects of expertise, and as conceptual machineries develop, the knowledge becomes increasingly removed from everyday life. There are two consequences to this level of knowledge construction. The first is pure theory, as knowledge experts work and think in abstraction from everyday life. And the second is strengthened traditionalism due to, as Berger and Luckman state, the inherent tendency of institutionalization towards inertia. Conflict arises as well when there are full-time experts dedicated to universe maintenance. Conflict occurs between experts and practitioners as well as between rival expert groups. On a final note, the societies may either have a monopolistic tradition. This is where a single symbolic tradition maintains the symbolic universe. Primitive societies and medieval Christendom are examples of monopolistic tradition. Most modern societies, on the other hand, are pluralistic societies. Pluralistic societies, according to Berger and Luckman, have a shared core inverse taken for granted as such, and different partial universes coexisting in a state of mutual accommodation. And that concludes my presentation on Berger and Luckman's concept of legitimation and the three components of legitimation: symbolic universes, conceptual machineries of universe maintenance, and social organization for universe maintenance. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next week.